Thanks for taking some time, Zia. Definitely excited to talk to you a little bit about, the data science program that we're putting together. And of course, learn a little bit more, about you and your career and kind of what led you, to doing this. You've been around tech for quite some time. One of the things, we both share is spending some time up in the Great White North, where Canada gets a little bit chillier than California, but at the end of the day, tech is tech. And one of the coolest parts about it is it does have impacts around the world. And I don't think anybody disagrees that data science is going to be around for a little while. And we'll probably not get into the whole Terminator AI side of it, but we'll dabble, maybe hopefully, ease some people's concerns. So thanks again for, taking some time.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure, and thanks again for giving me this opportunity. Yes, and the data science is actually, I think, a field that's going to grow. There are a lot of fields, or we ran into a lot of challenges when COVID hit us about a year and a half back. But I want to say that data science is one field. I think, among others, there are other fields that also got some additional value or some additional growth out of that. Pre-COVID, data science was important. It was considered one of the top fields in the industry. But after COVID, the growth rate has increased because everybody that was not online now had to go online. And as soon as they went online, there is more data generation and more reason to actually get value or get information out of that data. So I think COVID has helped data science a little bit, hopefully creates more opportunities for businesses as well as people to find jobs in there. But I think the growth is there even with COVID hitting us and slowing down the business, generally speaking.
So with kind of that in mind, COVID has accelerated the use of technology, not just from the kind of the back end standpoint of what is needed to support all of us. We're just out here using it. We're hopping on our phones. We don't think twice about what goes on behind the scenes. And of course, people and companies are scrambling to, keep the internet up and running as we're all bombarding it, with whether it's a cat video or just trying to get, our most recent, grocery order placed. But so before COVID, what was it that kind of allowed data science to grow to the forefront of where it is today? Because computers and technology have been around for a while. People have been collecting information on users and clients and kind of doing, market analysis and stuff for a long time. But what was it that's happened over the last, you could probably tell me better. When did the data science boom really start?
Yeah, so if I kind of go back, I believe that companies have been doing some kind of data analytics, data mining, predictive analytics. Those were the terms that were used in 1900s. And companies were doing some of that work at that time also. But I think in the 2000s, especially in the late 2009, 2008, 2005, that time frame, and then in early 2010s, a few things changed. So companies were generating a lot of data. Now, companies have been generating a good amount of data for some time, but storing data was expensive. If you remember, in early 2000s, a hard drive would cost you a lot of money. You're looking at 100 megabyte hard drive, and you're looking at a couple of $100. And then fast forward to 2010, and fast forward to now, 2020, a couple of $100 might get you a couple of 100 terabyte of data now. So earlier, storing data was expensive, and companies would be very careful in what they store, what they keep. Now I think that the time has changed. Companies are very careful in throwing anything away. They want to store whatever they can. That includes text files, that includes Facebook posts, that includes Twitter tweets, that includes all their transactional data. because storing data is not as expensive, companies store data. The other thing that also helped big time in this, and there are a couple of other things. One of them is computers became faster. And now it's one thing to have a lot of data, but it's another thing to actually be able to process it. So
Yeah,
computers are faster now, so you can process more data. And the third thing I think that also contributed, and internet started in 1995, 96, I think that kind of an era. But in 2000s, it became really popular. So now the speed of the internet has got to a point where if you are a California-based company and your data is in Florida, you can actually have a very fast, reliable internet, and you can get that information from there with faster internet, process that quickly with a faster computer, and be able to actually generate insight from data. So I think all these things changed in the last few years, maybe in the last 10 years, that has kind of driven the data science or data analytics or data mining, predictive, whatever you want to call it. They have grown that field into a higher demand field. Does that kind of make?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that, a lot of us can relate to for people who even aren't super technical, is we can definitely think back to 2 or 3 years ago and the speed, at which maybe you would be on something in one room, a family member would be on in another room, and you just have these issues with whether it's the internet connectivity or just the speed of your own computer or, your phone. We don't need to go back as far as, you and I remember when we were actually having dial-up and you either had to choose the phone or the computer as to what you were connecting to. But taking a little bit of a time travel, you started out not in data science and then made the jump. What was it that got you so excited about the field of data science?
Yeah, so I'll give you the joking answer that I give to a lot of people,
Okay.
and then I'll get to the serious answer. So the joking answer is that I was in cloud computing. I got a lot of white hair. So I said, I need to do something which is a little bit less stressful so that I can at least have some hair, not lose all of them. But the real answer, I think, is that I have always liked data. I wanted to do something in the data science or the data side of it. And cloud computing was my way of kind of trying to stay at the cutting edge of it. So to be in the forefront of the technology and not far. But in early 2010s, data science and big data were coming up. There were some things that were newer things. So at that point, I kind of looked at what I wanted to do in maybe 10 years. And I said that, okay, I think this is the time that I kind of make that switch and start transitioning into data science as a field. But it's always been something that has driven me. And I also kind of enjoy the fact that data science actually brings me closer to the business also. One of the pillars in data science is that you need to understand the business side of it. And with a little bit of background coming for me from cloud, as well as I have the technology background and I have a little bit of a business background. So it kind of brings me together there. So multiple reasons, but in a short answer to your question is that I think I kind of enjoy staying at the cutting edge of technology, and data science was a newer field, helped me, always interested with my math major in my undergrad. I think was a field for me to go into.
Yeah, and keeping your hair is always a good aspect, and something that I'm trying to hold on to now as well. And there's times when some of our employer partners can make me a little bit frustrated when it comes to handing resumes over and the expectations that they have. But we've got such great students that I know that they're going to land a job eventually, and stick with it.
Yeah, you're good right now, TJ, and I think it's time for you to switch into data science.
Oh, don't tempt me right now. I every time we're talking about whether it's diving into, kind of the conversations about the curriculum, or, listening to, whether it's a podcast or an audiobook about, what is being done. And I know we talked about not diving into this, but there are so many misconceptions about artificial intelligence and data science, and kind of where that's headed. And I think it really comes down to, the engineers who hold, and then the companies who hold a lot of, the responsibility, which is, I mean, if we're quoting Spider-Man, it's, with great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
But in regards to, one of the things that was interesting that you mentioned is the kind of the marriage of data science and business. And, I think that's something that a lot of people overlook. And one of the things that I've noticed as, in my career as both a recruiter, and then of course, having, worked in the bootcamp space now for 4 years, is that a lot of some of the, or at least what I've seen, is quite a few successful people who have made the change into data science have come from a business, analyst and business analytics, kind of background. Outside of business analysts, what other areas do you think people really successfully transition into data science and really benefit, from going to a data science bootcamp?
So I think that as a natural progression, the couple of fields that actually are very close are business analysts, or furthermore, data analysts. Anybody who presently does data analysis it should be a natural progression for them. Now, I can probably lump into software engineers, because again, this is my thought, and I'm not an authority, but I think that machine learning very soon is going to be a prereq for you to be a software engineer.
Interesting.
If you don't know machine learning and you are a software engineer, you know half the skill set. So that, I think, is a key part. So a key part of is going to be a key part of a software engineer's job is to know machine learning. Now, so I'm going to say that it should be a natural progression for software engineers also. In addition, a lot of people come from database background, because they're again closer to data. And anybody who is closer to data knows and understands the value of data, and knows that this is a data-driven economy. And I forget who said this for the first time, but data is the new oil. And that is what is driving the economy now. And I'm sorry, I don't recall the name of the person, but data is the new oil. Data is what is driving the business now, the economies now. So I think anybody who's closer to data, it should be a natural progression for them. Again, you do need some coding background, you do need some math and stats background, so you do need to have those skills. But generally speaking, people who are closer to that should be a natural progression for those people to get into this field. Any type of analysts are prime candidates.
And what's interesting, about that too is a lot of times when people think of artificial intelligence, they think of jobs that are being taken away. And, they make the mistake of thinking that those are typically blue collar jobs that are working on assembly lines, when in reality, the majority of jobs that are taken kind of by AI are these, clerical kind of administrative roles that are happening inside of office places. And, you have a lot of analysts that were previously, on the stock market, who have just been entire floors taken away because computers have been added into it. And it sounds like the people who would benefit most are the ones who are already there and around the data. They know what it looks like. They're comfortable, kind of maybe identifying it, even good and bad data. And now all you just need to do is add in that tool set of how to utilize languages, like Python to really, to really take advantage of what you've already been putting your time into. This isn't a complete career change. This is simply, progression. And it's one of the most important pieces of just being a good, technologist, is that you're constantly looking at what's next. And, you hit the nail on the head when you said that, even being in cloud, you realized that data science was kind of that next foray. So I had mentioned Python. Why is it that Python is both such a great language for people to start with and such a powerful language and the leading language for data science professionals?
So great question, and there is a lot of people who would have different thoughts on that. There is this concept of rapid development, and the reason I'm starting with rapid development is because that is the key concept when you think of Python. Python is a language that will help you kind of develop very rapidly. It's a very easy to understand language. It's easy to start off with, but in addition to that, it has those additional libraries, additional kind of modules that are developed by other people. But because it's an open source language, they have been given to Python so that people who are using Python can use those libraries to actually write code in a faster way. There are libraries like Pandas, which is an analytical library. That library helps you analyze data at a very fast speed. And libraries like that, be it a NumPy library or be it plotting libraries or be it Pandas, these libraries actually help you move fast in your progression to actually get an algorithm ready and be able to deliver value to your business. So again, going back to that rapid development, it allows companies to actually quickly move along. Can you do data science with C++ and Java? Absolutely can. But the libraries that are available in C++ or Java might not be at the level where Python is, or the other option that you see in the industry is R. That R is a statistical package. It's a statistical language that has a lot of libraries also built in, especially for analytics. And you will see that people work in R as well. And both Python and R, they have the same advantage. Now, Python is kind of now becoming the de facto for data science because there's a lot of work being done in the deep neural networks that is around Python, GPU support, that kind of thing. Not that you can't do this in other languages, but there is a lot more easier transition for people to do it in Python. Then there is another concept that we see, which is of citizen data scientists.
Interesting.
A citizen data scientist is a data scientist that is actually coming from a different background. So you are you might be a subject matter expert of something else, but you want to do data science, or you want to do some kind of predictive analytics. So those people are called citizen data scientists. And those people, Python and languages like Python and libraries that have support that make data science easy for those people also. So it's kind of a dual edge. It helps you do that rapid development so that you can get to things faster using those libraries. And it also gives people from other specialists from other domains to actually quickly build on this and make it to the next level, that people or companies can quickly get value or benefit out of data from this. So I know that this was a very long worded answer to a short question that you asked, but
no, absolutely. And you know what, it makes a lot of sense because, having been around web development for so long, JavaScript kind of falls into a similar category where JavaScript is a fairly easy language to start with. Both Python and JavaScript are higher levels, so you're not having to really get into the kernel layer, the old school stuff, that the computer is doing. But at the same time, there's such support from the community that essentially just turn it into this just massive beast of libraries and frameworks and essentially tools that allow you to save time writing line after line of code. A lot of it's already been done for you. And then of course the advantage comes with knowing the benefits, the weaknesses, the pros and cons of those certain libraries, rather than just throwing them together, kind of, ad hoc and running a little bit of those risks down the line.
That's right. Yeah.
So
So understanding what are the capabilities of the library is where the skill actually is, that you know what you can drive out of this library versus the other library. So what is the benefit of one over the other? But those libraries actually, as you mentioned, those libraries are kind of the pillars or the tools that help Python move or help people move quickly in Python and get value from whatever they're trying to analyze or predict.
So one of the things we keep, saying is data science, and we talk about data scientists and citizen, data scientists, but outside of, so let's say somebody comes in, they've, haven't been working as a professional data scientist before, they come through a data science boot camp. In your experience, both as an instructor and, hiring, what types of roles have you seen people go into outside of simply data scientist?
So again, data scientist, I think, is the most typical role, but yeah, the overarching role. But there is data analysts. So people can go in as a senior data analyst that needs to understand Python and do predictive analytics, not just data analytics. Again, data analytics is more historical based, whereas predictive is for the future. So he has a vision of the future. So senior data analyst is a role. Machine learning engineer is a popular role for anybody who is graduating from a boot camp and can go into that, because machine learning, again, as I said, that machine learning is one of the things that is very similar to software engineering. So machine learning engineers are becoming popular. There is this this role that we also see, which is big data engineers. So now big data engineers are kind of in the same ballpark, but they deal mostly with big data. So there are companies that actually call them big data engineers. You can actually go as a big data engineer as well. There are roles that I have seen job openings for as junior data scientists, people who are fresh, because again, data scientist has a cachet to its title.
Yeah.
And when you are starting off, sometimes that's maybe a senior role for you. So you can actually go in as a junior data scientist, sometimes as a data scientist intern as well. So those kind of roles are all kind of, the other one is a data engineer. So data engineer is a little bit different, because a data engineer actually works on getting the data right. And that might be a role that you can start off with and then transition into a data scientist role. Again, data scientist, because it comes with a little bit of a cachet, sometimes when you are new, it might be a little bit, the expectation is a little bit higher when you go into that role.
Yeah, it's interesting, how often, and I think we're moving a little bit away from it, but the old kind of mentality of, you have this title, this is what you do, and now companies are kind of throwing around titles and deciding what people are, and it's kind of similar to software engineer, where you can say software engineer, but you could mean 10 different roles and responsibilities that somebody might have. One of the things you had mentioned is some data science, and bootcamp graduates can end up in, a data analyst role. And, I remember taking statistics in college, and, you come out, and of course, Google Analytics has been around for a little while. And at least in my research and having, once again, been around the bootcamp space for quite some time now, I see a lot of data analytics programs, but I've only seen a handful of true data science programs. So you had mentioned that is the main difference between the two that data analytics is more historical leaning, whereas data science is more future and forward leaning. Are there any other major differences, kind of between the two?
Okay, so let me see if I can kind of try to differentiate between the two with an example. So in data analytics, we are primarily interested in what happened and why did that happen. So for an example is, for example, a Starbucks location. They sell 200 cups of coffee every day. All of a sudden, they sold 500 cups of coffee. So what happened? Instead of 200, they sold 500.
Yep.
And why did that happen? Maybe they ran a promotion. So this what and why is kind of historical. You're looking in the rear view mirror, what happened, why happened, and that's primarily data analytics. Now, how many cups of coffee will Starbucks sell tomorrow? That is predictive analytics. And that is where data science comes in, because now you're doing something for the future, which is for predictive next step. So that's what will happen tomorrow. How many cups will Starbucks sell tomorrow? And if they want to sell 500 cups, what can Starbucks do, or how can Starbucks ensure that they sell 500 cups? So that how is actually called prescriptive analytics. So there is data analytics, which is historical. There's predictive analytics, which is what will happen tomorrow. And then there is prescriptive analytics. How can you write me a prescription of what can happen, or how can I make it happen? So a lot of, actually not a lot, everybody's interested in prescriptive, but it is the hardest to do. So predictive analytics is where data science comes in.
Gotcha. And you know what? And this makes so much sense as to where the business aspect comes in, because before data science, and correct me if I'm wrong, you know, as a business person or as a company, you would look historically, you would look back and you would say, well, how did we do over this last year numbers wise? And then you would use that, and people would sit into a boardroom and they would try to guess what to do next. But they didn't have much certainty with that, you know, guess, because essentially it was humans who were having to kind of make that predictive, you know, analytics, where now we've added in the component of the libraries and the machine learning algorithms that are allowing us to say, there's still the human component, which is we think this is going to happen, but can you run all of the different scenarios and let us know what it is that's most likely, you know, going to happen?
Yeah. So again, because when we started off, we talked about that there's lots of data and a lot faster processing, reliable internet. So all that comes in now because we have data. Companies are able to process that data and use that data to do analytics and actually do predictive analytics, not just descriptive or data analytics, but do something for the future as well. So faster computers, faster everything has helped up. Previously, we used to go what was earlier called, oh, this is my gut feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gut feeling is now starting to, okay, if it's your gut feeling, that's good. But if you have data to show or prove it, it is even better. So that's what we are trying to go to now.
Yep. It's like the marketing people who would come in and say, this is where things are headed. And, you know, the rest of the business people or the finance people, the numbers guys would say, okay, why? And they're like, well, because we feel, you know, that's what's going on. One of the things that, you know, I had noticed as well when looking at some of the kind of career paths that I've seen data scientists take is that they started out in, you know, academics, and they had been previous PhDs and master's students before then going to a data science boot camp. Why do you think that that's a fairly common kind of transition for people to make?
I do believe that people who have that background, they have that thinking developed, which is curiosity, and they kind of do that outside the box thinking. So once you develop that, that's what is one of the things that makes you a good data scientist, is if you have that curiosity and you want to think outside the box. How can I do this, or what can I do this to actually improve it or help it? Because building a machine learning model or building something that will predict is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is to improve it, to make it better, to have some outside the box thinking, to have some vision about doing something different. So I think that with those people, they have that skill developed, and that actually translates really well with data science, because you do need that outside the box thinking. You do need that vision to actually look beyond and see if you can help that. So I think that's why it is we are seeing a lot of PhDs get into the data science field. But I would like to add here is that it is not a requirement.
Mm.
I do know a lot of great data scientists who are not PhDs. So it's not a requirement. It's probably a good thing to have, and it brings a lot of additional value, but it's not a requirement.
And so it still comes back to the curiosity, the hunger kind of for knowledge, and essentially, you know, a PhD and you know, master's in continued education it's a formalization, you know, of that hunger for knowledge, and you're also getting it from a very reputable, you know, place where a lot of the information, you know, that you're either taught or learned, you know, in classes today can be found online. You're just going to spend so much time trying to get that together and figure out what's good and what's bad, that going to and getting and continuing your education is typically a much quicker route. And then of course there's the aspect of learning from people who have been in the space versus, once again, kind of going to the internet and trusting or having to do all of the analysis, you know, yourself, which, you know, as we know, YouTube and social media and Google, their goal is to help you, but also keep you on their site. And so, and this also gets back to the data science side, which is what makes, you know, YouTube so powerful, and these websites and in, you know, spaces. We don't need to get into the social dilemma and any of that slippery slope. And we've been chatting for quite some time now. So I think a good place to wrap up here is two questions. One, if somebody comes into, you know, a data science program, and let's get more specific because, you know, I don't know exactly what other programs are doing, but here at LearningFuze, what can somebody expect to do in the 12 weeks and what will they be building?
So if I had to kind of highlight maybe one or two things, because I can talk about a few things here, but if I had to highlight or pick a couple of things to talk about, I think one key component of a data scientist. So there are kind of two hard skills. You do need to know coding. You do need to know programming. So that's one hard skill. The other hard skill is probably maths and stats. So you do need to have those skills. The third skill that you need as a data scientist is some business understanding, business knowledge. And if you are new and if you are fresh, the one thing that will help you big time is to having an understanding of some business. And how we will do that in our bootcamp at LearningFuze is by making people do projects that are industry-based. So you work on projects, or you work on data that is coming from different industries. It might be coming from financial industry, it might be coming from healthcare industry, and those data sets are publicly available through UCI's website or through Kaggle's website, and you can get those data. But we will be working on those to help you build and analyze that data, and that will give you that extra edge of understanding business knowledge, because business knowledge typically you only get when you work at a place. You work in healthcare, you understand the healthcare, you understand what a claim is, you understand what it is. You work in marketing, you understand what a click rate is. But if you work on that data, and we help you work on those kind of data sets that have click rates in there, you will get a business understanding also. And the transition of how do I take that data and make it relevant to the business so that the business can benefit out of it. So I think that's one biggest thing that you will get working with LearningFuze is to actually be able to work on those projects. And you work on multiple projects, 10 plus projects in that 12-week course. So pretty much a project a week kind of thing. So you work in different industries and you build that.
That's exciting. I think that's very exciting because, you know, when people think about traditional education, they're used to, you know, sit in a lecture, memorize stuff, test on it. And every once in a while you have the opportunity to take literally a company that you know or an industry that you're interested in and say, I want to do a case study on this, or I want to do, you know, I want to try to put together a business plan, but that's not every day. And so doing that in a boot camp, it's like, oh my gosh, you get to come in and maybe, I think if I remember correctly, one of them is the Titanic, you know, data set. That is a little, you know, the hair on my arms rose a little bit, but that's also really cool stuff because it is something that you can relate to, you can talk to other people about.
Yes, yeah, certainly. So that I think is a big plus, and we would like to think that that's a big differentiator for LearningFuze, that we provide you that that opportunity that you pretty much work on a project kind of every day on a weekly basis. And the other thing I think is that in the boot camp, we will try to get you. So one of the aspects of doing a boot camp and finding a job is that you should be able to present yourself.
Yep.
In a data science role, a lot of companies, when they interview people for hiring, they not only give you a project to do, which is very common in software industry, that okay, they will get you a project to do. They actually get you to present the findings also. And you will be doing that very often in our course. One of the things that we want to do is maybe get people to present every day. So if you're doing it for 3 months on a daily basis or every second day, you will get into that habit of actually looking at the data and trying to see what can I present tomorrow that will make me differentiate of myself from the crowd for tomorrow's session. And that is going to help you maybe stand out in an interview also.
Yeah.
Because
and I was about to say, not just the interview process, but in your career, because what we are literally talking about is automating more and more stuff, making, whether it's computers or the data that we're using, more and more powerful. And earlier we talked about roles that are kind of being removed. And typically it's the roles that have a ton of repetition and you don't have a human aspect to it. And so those soft skills, the presentation skills, the ability to kind of read a room and understand how your interviewer is reacting to your answers and your questions, that's the stuff that can make you, I guess maybe for lack of a better term, indefensible as you're moving, throughout your career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great skill to have, and we will work with you on that skill so that you get better at. And some people are already good, and hopefully they get much better. And then people who don't have that skill will build their skills so that they get to that level.
Absolutely. And I think that's where, when I talk to a lot of students, it's about playing to your strengths and your weaknesses. You could come in with strong soft skills. Well, awesome. Spend more time working on your coding skills. You could come in with strong coding skills. And we get a lot of people who have a computer science degree. And what we're going to do is we're going to help you work on those soft skills to then be able to apply that to, the real world in the marketplace. So final, question here. And I think both of us are very excited for, this upcoming cohort and the chance to work with, students both in the class and then of course in their job search, because this is such a rewarding, experience. And it's so exciting to see people go from whether it was a career that they enjoyed, but wasn't providing for them and their family, or they were simply in a place where they just weren't happy and feeling challenged every day, to you have students who are reaching out, and alumni who 2 to 3 years in the workforce are saying, I couldn't imagine that I would be here at this point in time, or I'm now putting money towards my first house, is very, very exciting.
Yes.
But there's something else about data science that I'm not sure many people realize, which is that Harvard Business Review called it the sexiest job of the 21st century. So do you have any idea why Harvard, named it that, and what makes data science so sexy?
I don't know what was the driving force behind Harvard calling it the sexiest job of 21st century. I think they published that in 2012 or something like that.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. But I think that the excitement in data science comes from the fact that it is very close to the business. It helps you grow revenue. It helps you optimize. It helps you reduce cost, and that's what's sexy for business.
Yeah,
probably.
Money.
Yeah, probably. So maybe that's the driving force. I don't know, but to me, that's what's interesting for a business, is because it can contribute to revenue growth. It can contribute to optimization. It can contribute to efficiency, and that is what business is like. And that's what is kind of interesting for people who are in this field is because they can help the companies that they are working with grow and be better.
Yeah, that's it. Once again, an easy way to keep your job is if you're helping the company continue to make money.
There you go. That's the bottom line.
Awesome, Zia. Well, thanks so much for taking, I mean, gosh, almost a full hour here now talking about data science. And, we can tell, like, this is something that I'd imagine you have some dreams sometimes, and you wake up and you're solving, a business problem or solution. And it's, once again, exciting for me because, having been around technology for as long as I have and having helped so many students with, the search and the web development side, I'm really excited, to add in this data science one and really start connecting with companies, in the Orange County area and even outside of that, are really pushing, the forefront of technology. And I think a lot of people don't really see Orange County as a tech, hub, but if they're sleeping on Orange County, they need to be careful because in a few years, Orange County is going to come breaking through and we might be like a bull in the china shop or maybe like the Real Housewives, but we'll be in your face.
Yeah, and I think Irvine is, as a city, is picking up a lot of, there's a lot of data science opportunity in here. Then we have the Silicon Beach, which is very close by, which Santa Monica is now called the Silicon Beach. So we have Silicon Valley, which is in Northern California, but we have Silicon Beach here. And hopefully they'll come up with a fancy name for Orange County or Irvine for something to do with silicon. But yeah, no, I think there is a lot of opportunity in Irvine that is coming up now, and we have some good companies who have some big initiatives going here.
Yeah, I'm not going to coin this. Maybe this is a working title, but maybe the Python Paradise.
There you go.
Cool. Well, I will let you go, Zia. Thanks so much. I imagine we'll see some people come through, ask more questions, in the info sessions that we're hosting, the workshops that we have going on, and, definitely excited once again to start filling those class seats and, teaching again in person where we can really get hands-on with people, which is really exciting. So thanks again. I hope you have a great rest of the evening, and we'll keep an eye out for people to reach out and ask us and bombard us with questions about the future of AI.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, TJ. I appreciate that.